Hello, everybody. Isabelle Van Doorn speaking from DG Move. I am the moderator of this plenary, and it's a pleasure for me. I am here with a great speaker, and we will learn a lot. I hope that you will learn a lot. I know that I will learn. We are here to discuss finance for sustainability. There is a solution out there for you. So we would like to do a tour of possibilities for financing. And it is a very good time to discuss investment in green and digital solution, because we are at the start of the new MFF. We should not say new anymore. What we have been seeing here in DG Move and in the Commission is we have seen, for example, the draft recovery plans coming to us, and we already know that we can expect billions of euros being invested in urban projects. We do not have yet the numbers, but I hope that we will have a clear estimation in the months to come during the summer. Overall, we have already a good feeling that we will have projects, a lot of projects in urban matters, in cities. Beside recovery plans, we have, let's say, our classical program under cohesion policy. We are discussing now with member states to see what are their programs. We also have the Connecting Europe facility coming, and we will see the first work program launched and the first call soon. We have the Digital Europe program. We should not underestimate the added value of this new program. Of course, we have Horizon Europe, and we have activities in Cluster 5 that will come soon. And of course, we have other projects supported by the EIB, such as Elena project, and we will hear some projects later on in this session. So all in all, in this session, we will hear the private sector view with Peter Sweetman presentation. We will have the role of the EIB as Green Bank leveraging private investment. And we will have also opportunities for startup with the presentation of Gregory Merli. I would stop here my introduction because we have a lot of interesting presentation, and I would like to give the floor now to Peter, who will talk about Energy Efficiency Financial Institution Group and what they can do for you. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Isabel, and thank you to DG Move and to the colleagues at the Commission and the organisers of this Smart Cities event. I have 7 minutes to talk to you about the EFIG group, but before I start, I wanted to flash back to February of 2017, when the G7 got together in Italy, and the Italian presidency said that people-centred smart cities would play an essential role in the future with global cities interconnected with smaller ones to become the backbone for smarter countries. He said at that time the three most important factors for the development of smart cities were enabling infrastructures, connectivity, energy and logistics, big data, knowledge-based capital. This weekend, G7 leaders come back to meet again in Cornwall in a meeting about people, planet and prosperity, and how not to waste the historic public injection of money to recover from the COVID pandemic. So I'm going to talk to you about the Energy Efficiency Financial Institutions Group, EFIG, who I think can help you not waste money. We essentially are solely based on funding and upscaling energy efficiency. So I'm trying to see if my slides will move. There we go, they do. So the EFIG group actually began its work in 2013. It is a public-private initiative that is co-convened by the European Commission and the United Nations Environment Programme's Finance Initiative. Today, it has over 500 members and participants, and it seeks to improve and furnish technical recommendations and better understanding through the engagement of public and private sectors actors with industrial and energy efficiency stakeholders. Our approach can be seen on this chart. We've had 3 phases of our work. In essence, the first phase, we summed up the barriers and the recommendations to overcome those barriers for both market participants and for policymakers in a report published on the same day as the Energy Union in February of 2015. We then produced Europe's largest database of energy efficiency projects called DEEP, which I'm going to talk to you about. We also wrote an underwriting guide for banks to help them understand energy efficiency in the context of their business processes. And we engaged in local member state activities in 5 key member states. We're now in the 3rd phase of the EFIG. And in this 3rd phase, we have distinct working groups. The world of energy efficiency, thankfully, has become so detailed that we now need to dive down into specific areas, such as the correlation of arrears and defaults with energy performance for banks, such as industrial energy efficiency as a specific area, such as the multiple benefits and how to quantify those for financial counterparties. But we'll talk some more about those areas. So we also have a website which is a part of the Commission's own domain. That means to find the work of the EFIG, you just need to remember the Commission's website, which is ec.europa.eu/EFIG, EEFIG. Going to that domain, you will discover and you can subscribe to a newsletter and see the most latest activities published. Next slide. There we go. Our theory of change is to use that technical knowledge and insight, publish it through the working group activities, and then engage directly with the European Commission, the financial sector, and industry experts to accelerate action. So what I did for this plenary was answer the questions that were written into the briefing pack. So the first question which I will answer is, what are the solutions offered by public and private sources of capital to make an impact on the energy and key aspirations of cities across Europe? And I'll illustrate that by showing you some pictures from the de-risking energy efficiency projects database. So to identify and de-risk solutions, you need to know what they are. And you can find that by digging into the 17,000 projects from all European countries that are free to see through easy access to this database. Buildings projects are probably the ones, so of course there are industry in cities, but buildings ones are probably the ones that will interest you the most. And we encourage you to not only see what's there, but also to enter your own projects. The more cities and city representatives we have putting data in, the more interesting the DEEP will be to people working in cities. We've had the excellent upload from EIB and other public finance organizations working through Elena and other programs and Jessica and into the city's domain. So don't worry, there's already plenty of projects there which will be directly applicable to you, but also feel free to share your project information with others. The second question I chose to answer was how cities project developers and entrepreneurs can ensure that funding and finance solutions include energy efficiency. Here, I think it's an easy one. We just need to make sure that the EFIG toolkit, which is called Value and Risk Appraisal Framework for Energy Efficiency Finance and Investments, gets handed in physical form or sent as a link to the project developers and the financial institutions with whom you're working. They will then read it, upload its thinking into their thinking, and they will then be able to develop energy efficiency attributes more easily in the projects that you are promoting. The third question I chose to answer was, what are the prerequisites and what can we learn from success stories? How can public finance be levered and blended with private finance? Here, I must say, I'm going to give you a little sort of advert for the future. in the sense that we have an entire working group designed to investigate this exact question. Luckily, they will have been working for 2 whole years on this question, and I'm the co-lead of that working group, and they intend to publish a report showing best practices in the month of October of this year. So it's a little bit wait and see, but just to give you a sneak preview, we already have found 250 reference documents. We're updating the status of 18 financial instruments. We've done 2 surveys, and we've had a number of co-authors helping us write that document, like a sort of IPCC style approach. So I'm pretty confident that's going to be a very interesting and exciting document when it is public. It'll be reviewed by the Commission, and we are very confident that it will help sort out these issues. And then finally, recognizing I'm running out of time, I would like to answer the question 4, which I'm unsure if you can see. There it is. What specific points of attention are there for sectors that will make a difference in a city? So here I'd like to highlight very quickly what I mentioned at the start, which is the EFIG's Multiple Benefits Working Group, which is a team of experts who've done nothing other than in the last year and a half focus on how to get the most financially from energy efficiency projects by focusing on how they also deliver water efficiency, health impacts, audible efficiency, acoustic benefits, improved healthcare costs for the local regions, better air quality, and all the other components of an energy efficiency project, which we know are relevant. So very finally, at the end, they will be publishing a report before the summer. So this one's coming out earlier than the other one that I have mentioned, and so that consolidated thinking with the quantifiable financial model will be with you in the next few months. So with that, I wanted to thank you very much for listening to me and for inviting me to speak here on behalf of the EFIG group, and I'll pass the floor back to Isabel. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for this introduction to your work and to, let's say, the help you can provide to cities. I propose that we can come back maybe to some of your points in the discussion, because it was very, very interesting. I would like maybe to move to the next speaker, Talita Cook from Amsterdam, the public transport operator of Amsterdam, GVB, and she will talk about funding sustainable public transport in Amsterdam, and she will explain to us the smart city mobility concept and the role of the EIB. Thank you, Talita, for your presentation, and I would invite you to keep the timing as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Isabel, for this opportunity to speak about the project that we are running in Amsterdam for the past 3 years now. Hello, everybody. I'm Talita. I am the CSR manager, so responsible for all the sustainability projects at GVB. It's the public transport operator in Amsterdam. Just very quick, we are a private company, but publicly owned since 1900, so a long time. The first trams in Amsterdam run 121 years. And we are responsible for all the rolling stock, obviously metro, bus, tram, but also the ferries. So that's an interesting part I'll get back to a bit later. Just to give you a bit of context, usually we would have around almost 1 million daily commuters at the busy days. Obviously, the past year has been very tough for all public transport operators. On average, we have lost half of our daily commuters, and even in the start of the corona crisis, it was around 10%. And I'm sure this is recognizable for most of the cities around Europe, that public transport has been suffering quite a bit. Still, as the theme of this session, of course, is how can smart cities be financed for their policies? And one of the main topics is zero emission, clean air. Well, you're probably not surprised that this is one of the main policy objectives for mobility in Amsterdam. So the policy package that we are working with together with the city of Amsterdam, as I said, we're publicly owned by the city, is the clean air program, as well as the car-free center agenda. Well, I'm sure you've all been once or twice to Amsterdam, or maybe a bit more often in the future. We have a very small center, which still actually has quite a lot of cars, despite the name we have as a cycling capital. And really, there's been a decision by the city to really move away from car first to car last, basically, as mobility choice. And obviously, this is where public transport plays a huge role, as you can imagine. So we're happy that despite this tough Corona year, we can still uphold this policy objective together with the city. Well, then to move to the project that we have been running as a part of the ELENA subsidy financed by EIB, and I'll get back to the numbers later, but just to give you an idea of what we're actually doing. Most importantly, we're moving to a zero-emission fleet. Of course, trams and metros already run on electricity, green electricity, I must say, but not for the buses and the ferries. Both run on diesel still, with huge emissions, huge amount of CO2, but also obviously fine dust in the city. So this is a major move that we're making away from the diesel powered fleet to the electric fleet. And part of the deal with ELENA is replacement of the 203 diesel buses and also of the part of the ferry fleet. We have 20 ferries in total. And another big part of the smart mobility concept is obviously that zero emission is one part of the deal, but the other thing is using energy smarter and also making the system as a whole smarter. I think Isabel also talked about that. Digitalization, I think, is one of the major game changers also in public transport and mobility the coming years. And this is really, we're entering together with the markets. I think this is quite an exciting time. You have a lot of market parties. How can you integrate them in you have this existing 121-year-old system of metro lines that you cannot obviously move very easily with stations. How can you interact them both on the IT side, but also really on the hardware side, making sure there are bikes available, e-scooters, e-cars, you name it, to make sure the entire mobility system is cleaner in the end. And another innovative project that we're working on is reusing the braking energy of our metro lines. This is very good for the energy efficiency. So we have done different research into, for example, batteries. That actually is not cost efficient this time, but we're going to use the braking energy to empower other metros and stations. So this is really good for the energy efficiency of the system as a whole. Well, what have we done so far? Just to give you at a glance, we've been 3 years into the project. As I said, the changing of the fleet is the most important. We're at 44 running in Amsterdam electric buses right now. 68 will come this year. And we started a tender for 204 more. So definitely the entire fleet will be replaced by 2025. Then the ferries, 7 hybrid ferries are in operation, and 5 fully electric ones we're very proud of, car ferries, are to enroll the coming years. So it's the first big line in the Netherlands, actually, that is fully electric. As I said, the smart IT that I was talking about, that has actually had some Corona delay. This is definitely, you see that the more innovative projects are definitely suffering at this point, because the private parties are a bit more hesitant to invest at this point in these types of projects. And also we don't have the funds to support them. So we have a new ticketing system, which is really helpful for all passengers, and a new app we're very proud of. But we have some delay here in this project. And the same goes for the energy efficiency. Unfortunately, the business case we do have, but we at the moment do not have the funds to invest. And hopefully this will be managed within the next year before the project ends, because we have 1 more year to the end of this year. Then coming back to the topic, of course, is financing, because of course all cities in Europe should want, I think, zero emission fleets and smart mobility, suiting for their own situation. What I think was really, really helpful with Elena is that we received 3.9 million, what is called technical assistance, and it has a leverage factor. The minimum is 10, so you need at least basically 40 million investment from the private sector. But when we set out, we expected to receive 165 million leveraged from the private sector. And actually, we're very happy that despite the corona difficulties that I was just mentioning, that we're still managing, at least for the fleet, definitely to raise the investments from the market. Also with help, I must say, from local government. So what you see is that private money is a little bit more difficult at this point. So we're definitely getting a bit more of a mix from public and private money. But up to this point, or March 21, we have 78% of the planned investments done. So we're still quite happy with the money that we have managed to receive. And lessons learned was one of the questions for all of you out there who are willing or are wanting to. I'm sorry, I'm actually not. I'm not clicking. Sorry, I suppose this was the slide before. I'm sure it will be shared at the end. Apologies. The lessons learned. I think what is really good about Elena is really a co-creation with the EIB, with the European Investment Bank. So it doesn't have a very fixed program, which I think is really helpful if you work at a relatively small city. So really start from your own objectives and goals, and start talking to the EIB what you really need, where your difficulties is and where you need the assistance. And it's great to have those resources to attract the expert advice and the extra research that you really need to make better decisions, basically, because you always have this idea about what type of buses you want to order or what type of ferries would be suitable for Amsterdam. But this is really just an extra push that you need to have a sounder business case, to have a better proposal, basically, to private investors. So I think that was the best help in that. And during the past year, I think the added value really showed that most, as I said, a lot of private parties were very hesitant to invest, and also we had to cut down costs because of, as I said, the passengers dropped by 48%. Still, we had this nice project we could still continue because of this certainty we had from the EIB. So I think that has really helped us to move forward in these very important areas for Amsterdam and for GVB. And I think that was my presentation, Isabel. So I think I kept within the 7 or 8 minutes. So that was it.
Nearly. But thank you. It was really interesting. So I didn't want to stop you. I think that it gives us a good view of a project, of a smart city project, a mobility project trying to improve, let's say, its energy and so on and so forth. So the smart angle, so really a smart city project. Thank you, Talita, for this explanation. I would like to move on now and to give now the floor to Jan Arts, who is a program facilitator on the Elena project Leuven, lower energy use via an extraordinary network. Jan, I also invite you to stick to the time, and we are really happy to hear your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Jan from Leuven. Leuven is an average city in Belgium, about 100,000 inhabitants. And I'm working for Leuven 2030, which is a network organization. What's nice about this organization, it's that we try in all the layers, we try to have a healthy mix between representatives of businesses, local government, knowledge institutions, and civil society. And we grew until we are now at an average of 700 members. And you can see that there are lots of organizations, companies, but also just private people. I started in 2012 when the Covenant of Mayors was signed by Leuven. And the NGO, Leuven 2030, was founded recently after that. So when it became interesting, it was that we started all kinds of workshops focusing on the different topics that we had to find solutions for, like mobility, food consumption, households, but also the bigger buildings. And that's where my project is situated. So the first groups of building owners came together. So it was mainly non-residential buildings, the big ones. And after several of these meetings, which became more and more structured, we found some kind of solution in the Elena Fund to find something that one of the partners could not do on itself. That was really interesting about this funding. And initially it were 18 partners, but the group grew until 24. Who applied together for this Elena grant. The interesting thing about this network is that there are very big partners, but also very small partners, and both public and private partners together. So it made it an interesting group that could learn a lot from each other. So at the end of 2017, the Elena funding was granted, about 1.5 million euros. So we had a leverage factor of 20. So we have to prove that there will be investments of more than 30 millions. The money was used 75% for external technical assistance and 25% for the project delivery unit, which consisted of a project engineer, myself, a project manager, more administrative work, coordinator, and then also half a day a week communication support. So here I show you the kind of projects we did. There were lots of renovations of roofs, but also complete makeovers of buildings. There was also heritage involved often, so that made it sometimes complex. Outside cladding often, but also master plans. That was something interesting. A small organization did not have the tragedy of working with master plans. So if something was broken in the building, they just replaced it one-on-one, and they continued like they were used before. But now with a master plan, they can see the strategy where they want to go to. Also, PV cells on the roofs were part of the project. We also tried to bring this more to the street by using banners and stuff all everywhere on every site, so that people could see that there was something happening that was inside the vision of our organization. Here's some pictures of what we actually did. So here the outside cladding was removed. This is a project of 5 building blocks of social housing. Yeah, so installation and new outside cladding was installed. This is a private apartment building. It was taken. This photo was taken at the ideal moment where the one side was already finished and the other side had to start it. So that's a nice one. This is a student housing, also new cladding and windows outside. We have often had these workshops where everybody came together to discuss what everybody was doing, and this was really, really interesting. Lots of these people were glad that there were this kind of sessions where they could speak to other people who had to take care of their buildings and to exchange. So next, the Elena project is now finishing, but we hope to continue with this group, but also to expand it to other partners on other projects. Some of the tracks we are following now is, for instance, this Plaatsmakers. It's the concept of this project is, before we start building new buildings, we want to fill the existing ones as much as possible. And Plaatsmakers is kind of Airbnb tool where for non-residential use. So it's something that is now in a startup phase, but we try to expand it rather quickly. Another project is the building performance contract, which built further on an existing EPC models. But EPC models are difficult for small organizations. They cannot use this type of financing on their own. So we try also to build a consortium of partners which bring their consortium of buildings together in the market. Another interesting thing is the residual value that we want to include to make it possible to finance measures that have a payback time of more than 15 years, which are usually, like outside cladding, is in the classic way too expensive for EPC models. And then, a last thing that we are trying to set up now, I don't have pictures yet because it's really early. We call it bright spots, which is a terminology from change management, where we try to bring together organizations. And what we want to do here is how they look at the costs of their buildings. Where are they situated in the cost structure of their organization? Is it within maintenance or production, which is maybe a rather narrow view of looking towards your building. But it could be within business development or a link with the strategy of your company. It could be that the costs of your building are included in the HR department, where you want to take care of your employees, and then it becomes rather interesting, and then you're not stuck with the typical payback time period that you want to use. Or it could be within the cost structure of marketing, for instance, where you put it in caring for your clients. So it makes it interesting in an interesting view, but it's still at the start. So maybe, hopefully, more about that later. Finally, we made a movie of our project, of our Elena project, and I believe it will be shown at the end of this section. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for this very interesting presentation. I have noted some keywords that are also important to me in your presentation. So the need for a master plan, the need to link to the strategy, participatory approach, performance contract approach. And maybe lately your idea of working with companies and making them, let's say, aware of the costs of their building in their own strategy. So a lot of approach that we need to take if we want to be, let's say, if we want to be smart in managing our city in all its components. Thank you, Jan. And thank you for having kept also more or less the timing. So we are on time, and so it's my pleasure to invite now Gregory Merli to talk about the EU Startup Prize and to share with us his thought and on how to work more with startups. So Gregory, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabelle. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Gregory Merli. I'm the Managing Director of the European Startup Prize. And I entitled my presentation, Challenge Ecosystem Community, the New Funding Opportunities for Sustainable Startups. So far, you've heard a lot about investors, directly, private, public, EU financial instruments. So at the European Startup Prize, we are not investors. We are a platform, and a platform that connects, among other things, investors with young companies. And we do it in the specific sector of sustainable mobility. So maybe platforms, there are many platforms in the sea, if I may. They have different names, Startups Challenge, Ecosystem, Community, Marketplace. They do more than connecting. I think they have the power to be a real translation service between investor and startup. And so based on the example of the European Startup Prize of what we do, I will try to show to you what are really the assets of a good startup challenge, of a good ecosystem, of a good community, and a second time to give you a few recommendations to investors and startups and cities to improve access to funding. So, first slide. So what is a good challenge? So based on the example of the European Startup Prize, we run a yearly program. Every year we set up a call for startups. We receive 600 applications. To the top 10 of these 600 applications, we do provide an acceleration and investment program. So you can see on the screen that our final ceremony awarding our top 10 was watched 300,000 times. So a good challenge for startups is a challenge that brings traffic and visibility. And for investors, a good challenge is a challenge that has a critical mass of startups in it. So you will understand very easily that a top 10 startups out of 600 is more interesting than a top 10 out of 50. So really, we need this good challenge and good opportunities for the startups. Okay, next slide up. I'm not sure if up. Yeah, sorry, I was clicking too many times. What is a good ecosystem? So typically, year after year, we've built a rich ecosystem at the European Startup Prize. We were joined by a lot of organizations, private and public, thousands of startups, major transportation and tech giants. I'm proud to say that every organizations that deal with innovation and mobility are part of our platform today. And we now do specialize ourselves in connecting startups with the EU level directly. But maybe 2 points of attention. It's very difficult to bring investors in ecosystem. So some big corporations come with their CVC. So this is easy, this is possible, but it's more difficult to have private investors such as Angels Club, VCs. And I do think they should take a more active part in such ecosystem. And also, our ecosystem typically could benefit a lot from cities and regional governments too. So my advice is really to take part in those ecosystems. Then, what is an active community? I think it's worth explaining the difference between a community and an ecosystem. I just give you one example, but the power of a community is that they can produce something together. In the case of the European Startup Prize, we have a think tank activity. Startups usually don't have time and resources to structure and to advocate in order to boost innovation. So this is what we do at the European Startup Prize. We crowdsource their ideas, and then we bring the ideas to the highest level of the European Union. Having said that, so I really encourage investors, local governments to take part in these different platforms, in the different bodies. It's another culture of works, but you will understand a lot about innovation, and I think some of these stakeholders are sometimes missing in these platforms. I would like to continue with a different topic. Yes, it works. I would like to give a few tips to improve access to funding. So maybe my first message goes to investors. What do they really need? Trying to understand a little bit of their psychology. So you need to know that for investors, they run certain models when they analyze a business model, and they need at least 4 things. In a startup, they need a great team, a protectable technology. They need to understand the market, and they need a technology that is highly scalable. So my first recommendation is really to, as a city, to facilitate the life of investors and give better and clear understanding on how your technology is scalable. So if you take the example of e-scooters, it's only now that cities start having some kind of harmonized local regulation about e-scooters that we can understand how big is going to be the market for e-scooters. But if we want to attract more investors into micromobility in general, for example, not only e-scooters, I really think it's important that we have those harmonized regulation at city level. Another thing that is missing for investors, I think, is a mapping of the market. So typically, this is what we do at the European Startup Prize. We have a significant number of startups that are applying to the Startup Prize. So we can draw a map of innovation and design the new trend for innovation. I think it's really important for investors to have access to this kind of intelligence. We do even more than that. We are a ranking agency, if I may. We publish every year our top 100 and top 50 startups, and we do it only in the field of mobility. But there is room for the same pattern, the same model in other sectors, for sure. And talking about ranking agency, I think the most important thing is that anyone should not be able to do it. Only organizations like ours that are non-profit, objective, with a solid methodology and with a lot of sustainability criteria should be there to fill in this role. Quickly jumping to what startups really need. Maybe I will go a little quicker on that one. But startup needs to be able to have a say, to be able to contribute shaping public policies. So I really encourage local government to ask established communities how startups can be more involved. Then my message go to the whole change of accelerator and incubators that are helping startups in the beginning of their life. I see too many programs that are centers around demo day. I see a lot of labs where there is a lot of loss of value, and my main advice would really be to have like very straight talks and next to the startups. Startups should get closer to a mentor to build personal relationships. It should not be only about demo days, and this will be the only way the startup will be able to take the next step. And one last thing, because we are here invited by the European Commission, I'm very happy to see that there are many funding programs that are in the pipeline for innovation. The main difficulty to the startups will be to find which one they match the best. So I guess it would be useful for them to have a one-stop shops to all these EU funds, and so it facilitates for them the matchmaking. And I have one last slide that I wish to show to you. Oh. I hope you can see it. Okay, and it's a message that I would like to address directly to the cities. I know that you're probably harassed by requests from the startups themselves, maybe in micromobility, to have meeting with you. They will explain to you why they have the best technology. So my advice is really save yourself some time and ask community or ask the European Startup Prize, for example, to show you directly what are the best startups in the field of micromobility based on your own criteria, based on sustainability. So find your community and ask them to organize for you these meetings, and it will save you a lot of time. Maybe the next step would also be to engage directly with the startups. Engaging is a really win-win process. It can help you understand how credible the startups are to deploy their technology. It can help you design new public tenders that will allow more innovation and that will improve your transportation service. So so my advice to every single one of yours is that platforms are there to connect you all, and this exchange of intelligence at the end of the day is very useful for every one of us and for access to funding in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory, for this. For sharing your thought about how to improve the situation and how to help the startup. And I like I retain one out of what you have said. I was a bit attracted by one point you made, i.e. that it was difficult to attract investors in the ecosystem. And we are all using ecosystem everywhere in all our discussions. And now you say, guys, in the ecosystem, there is one missing piece, i.e. the investors. And I take that as a good message. That I take that home or to the office, because I think that it is quite important indeed. Thank you for this. For this, and I would like now to go to the round table and to the question. We have a few minutes or half an hour roughly to discuss together. And before I take the question we have received, because I see that we have received several questions, so I propose to address them. And if I may, you can continue to send us questions, because I would like to spend some time in replying so that our experts can reply to your questions. So please feel free to send us your question. We will take them as much as we can. First question to the panelists now. Well, in 1 minute, if you can all give me your feedback on what can we learn from success stories. I mean, success stories. Of course, we are in the plenary session on finance for sustainability. So, what can we learn from success stories in attracting investment? Maybe I would invite Peter to start.
Yes, thanks, Isabel. So I've waded through Elena's programs and the EIB and the technical support facilities of the Commission and related sources and public sources, and I really think, and I fundamentally recommend that technical assistance and project development assistance is a great place to spend the recovery funds, because success seems to me to be comprised of two key components. The first is investment grade project development approach. So that means getting the data that you need, building the business cases that you need, having the partners that you need, and making a really robust application for funds to the private sector, which potentially can be backed up by a public sector guarantee facility or first loss facility. So those are potentially complex sounding words. They're not intentionally so. It's just because there really is a lot of money in the private sector willing to be invested in projects, but they just don't like the risk of a lot of public projects. So the public sector's job in those instances is to de-risk it through, one, providing money so that you can better develop the project. That means better explain it, have better data to base your assumptions, have better projections, have better financial models, have just a more wholesome approach to describing the project and what it's going to deliver. And then, as was mentioned by Jan, providing a public guarantee to extend the term of the debt, or the financing, because it's pointless us looking for quick returns in cities. Cities have horizon periods for 30, 50 years. So we absolutely need the public sector to extend the term through which private sector lenders can provide debt to cities and to the city counterparts. So for me, it's two things. Don't spend the money on grants, just giving money away. That's the least efficient way to spend money. Make it so grants for the actual project work, I mean. So grants for technical assistance, grants for public project development assistance, and then facilities to guarantee to get better economic terms for private sector money and longer term money. Thanks.
Thank you for this insight. Very, very clear. Talita, your views?
Sure. Well, I think I can totally relate to Peter's story, because I think that is what we have experienced in Amsterdam in the past year as well, where we had some difficulty leveraging private money because of the uncertainties in the market. And also, as you said, Peter, our return on investment is going to take years. Yet for the people of Amsterdam, it's tomorrow, right? So I think there's a very different outlook on return of investment. But with the help of public parties such as the City of Amsterdam and the province of Holland, they have basically de-risked our question to the market, bringing our interest rate down to a very acceptable level for us, making us able to really lend on the market. So I think I can really also conclude what Peter is saying.
Thank you, Talita. Jan?
Yeah, thank you. I want to talk maybe about the small organizations. That's something which was very interesting. For instance, one of our partners is a refuge, a home, a shelter where people with a drug addict can find a place to stay for a while. But the director who is running this organization has a background in psychology, and she does not speak the language of buildings. And she had troubles in convincing her board of directors in investing in the building. So by providing her a master plan with a long-term strategy, she was able to explain to them what could be done in which year, and making sure that every euro they could get was spent in a sensible way. It was with this master plan clear which steps had to be done first, and that. So this is maybe small, but it's important that the flow of finance for such organizations is small. So every euro should be spent as well as possible.
Thank you. Gregory, your views.
Yes, sir. I will give you the point of view of an accelerator about what is a startup that is successfully taking every steps and receiving every steps that takes to the exit. There is a whole range of stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem, from incubator, accelerators, different types of investors, public, private, blah, blah, blah. This system is, I don't know if this system is mature, but at least all these stakeholders are there and are very useful at the different phases of the life of the startups. And I would really recommend to take the path of connecting with these different stakeholders, depending on the stage of development of your startups. This is the only way I think startups will have a good conversion rate. I talk about conversion rate when I talk about pitching in front of investors and receiving investment and raising funds. Just to take a metaphor about sport, it's like playing football or baseball. What is important is not to play in the higher league right away. The most important is to play in your league, and then your accelerator, your incubator will check that you have all the capabilities to play in the next league, and this is the only way to safely go to the exit.
Thank you for this view. It's quite interesting to have this different perspective, so that it gives us a comprehensive view on the topic. Thank you. I would like, maybe if you agree, my dear speakers, I would like to address the question, because we have received several of them. So I think that there was a question for Talita. Talita, a question on the investment and the price of the ticket. So the question was, does the investment through Elena mean that ticket price will not need to be increased despite the large scale investment? Your answer, Talita.
Sure. Well, I can reassure you, we're not raising the ticket prices, or at least not above the few percentages of inflation. It's not because of Elena, though. It's because I think there are separate financing systems for the public transport system. So I think it's good to see that the ridership obviously is very important for our financial situation on a day-to-day basis and for operational costs. And yes, we do have major issues with that, and the national government is helping us to maintain our operation on a daily basis. And yes, there's also an issue with investments because of our uncertainties. So in that sense, Elena helps, but it's not directly linked to the prices of the ticketing. I'm not sure if this is a clear answer, but so it's two different finances for the public transport system, basically. Yeah, we would like an increase in ridership, though. I think that goes for every public transport organization in Europe at this point. So, yeah.
Indeed, and I am not the only one nodding. Peter, there was a question for you. Can you explain how recovery funds can be used to increase private sector investment in smart cities? Good question.
Yes, of course. So I think that, well, first of all, you heard Gregory talk about one-stop shops, and I do want to sort of address that new concept. The first thing I want to say is, please, cities, if you're listening, don't set up multiple one-stop shops, because that's an oxymoron or a conflict in terms, right? If we set up 10 one-stop shops in each city, European city, we're going to have 10,000 one-stop shops. And by that time, we'll be as confused as we are today. So the recommendation that I have for cities is sit down with your local banks. You may have noticed in the news that banks are closing offices and sort of going through a difficult time as they have digital challenges, and as the COVID has meant that people take less walks down the high street and spend less time in branches, similarly to public transport. So I think that cities can convene the private sector financial institutions together with and discuss their ideas on how to promote buildings renovation, how to promote large-scale renovation projects and involve specific actors, and both from the financial side and from the project development side. So I think that in my experience, there isn't enough dialogue. The public sector and the private sector find it difficult for some reason to talk to one another. In many cases, perhaps it's different country to country, and of course, there's infinite numbers of national varieties. But I do think that part of the development assistance packages should be ensuring that the private sector financial institutions are in the room early on in the process, so that they can start to improve the quality of the plans as they're being born, and not involve in an overspend in creating endless more administrative burdens, such as one-stop shops that don't work.
Clear. Thank you. Jan, a question for you. And I think that Talita mentioned it already a bit in terms of its impact on public transport. But similar question to you. How is COVID affecting your plans? Is the non-residential use decreasing?
Yes, very good question. First of all, for our Elena project, we got an extension of 6 months from the EIB, which was welcome, because effectively some of the sites slowed down due to COVID. But for the non-residential sector in general, we see this happening. Yes, that we heard from partners that were convinced that their building was too small before COVID. They experience now that home working is really working. So now they are setting up programs to, in the future, go to 60% at the office, 40% at home. And so they are rethinking the way they are using their buildings, which makes it important that one of the next steps we are developing, this Airbnb-like tool for non-residential, will be a solution, because some of the buildings will have more space left than it used to be. So yes, we're noticing a different now, but maybe within a few years it will be forgotten. I don't know.
Good point, Jan. We are not able to guess what will be the future. Another question to you, more specific to Elena. So does Elena provide support for project implementation or technical assistance for the project development? In the second case, would you need to look for additional funds to concretely implement projects?
Yes, so the Elena Fund is only for preparing an investment program. So not for the investment itself. Yes, so that's separate.
Thank you for this clarification. Question to you, Gregory. What startups can enter the European Startup Prize, and what credentials do they need?
Good question. So first, it gives me the occasion to tell you that the new batch of the European Startup Prize is going to start on the 1st of October. And this call for projects will be open for 2 months. So startups get ready. And in terms of eligibility, I would say two main message to the startups. The first one is that we are working in the field of sustainable mobility. So smart city is really in the core of it. But we are all about mobility, and then the eligibility is based on geographical criteria. So every year we are covering all the European Union, plus the United Kingdom that we will love forever, and plus all the countries that are associated in the EU Horizon program. So we really try to match all the cooperations between countries that have been created by the European programs. And so now we have a list of 44 eligible countries that cover the EU plus their neighboring countries. And then we don't have other selections criteria, because for an early startup, for early stage startup, we will have a specific program that is adapted to them. For a real tech startup, we will have a special price that is adapted to them. For a scale-up program, we will have a connection and funding opportunities with the European Investment Bank. So really, then it's up to us. This is where we try to be a one-stop shop ourselves. Then it will be up to us to find you and to match you with the best possible program to scale up in Europe.
Thank you, Gregory, for this explanation. I hope that you have answered the question. We have received a question that we could address to both Talita and Jan. And so we were referring earlier to, let's say, the horizon period of about 30 years from a city perspective. But then we have the election cycles, which are about 4 years. So the question in the chat was, how is it possible to keep up the project? So you start a project with one mayor, and this project can be terminated after the election by the new mayor. So that was an experience from a project. Elena Petrova gave us this question. So how can you react to this statement or question?
Sure. Can I react, Isabel? Well, yeah, I recognize this issue definitely with long-term investments as we have to do. So the preparation takes years for example, a fleet, change of fleet, or for example, a new metro, and you'll have a change of government in the meantime. I do think it helps, though, that at least here, and I can only speak for the Netherlands and Amsterdam in that sense, there's coalition government, generally left and green leaning, at least, despite a change of parties sometimes. So there is usually a general agreement on I would say, the major policy lines. But yes, there definitely has been some adaptations or some new insights in the project. But on the other hand, I think that always happens if you have a 4-year preparation for an investment. There's always new insights, you have to change and adapt. So I just see this as one of your stakeholders that you need to take into account when starting your investment project. At least that's my take on it.
Jan, would you have something to add?
Yes, maybe. We try to reach out to the possible elected mayors and or mayor or aldermen before the elections. So they all need some kind of project which they can during their election try to roll out. And we gave him already some of the ideas that we had within our strategy of Leuven 2030, which could be maybe for them one of those projects. And that worked somehow, yes.
Thank you very much, Jan. So, Peter, the next question is for you from the chat. How would you recommend to connect finance to one-stop shop?
Great, thank you for the question. I want to say that I love the concept of one-stop shops, but the way I see them as being being administration hubs. So what I mean by that is one-stop shops shouldn't be decision makers. So we shouldn't spend an enormously long time forcing a private sector bank to hand over its decision-making powers to a one-stop shop, which it doesn't control. I think that's a dead end. I think one-stop shops need to be able to have meetings with people who wish to make renovations to buildings in which all of the data concerns and the form filling and the administration and the knowing when tenders take place is essentially removed. All those horrible burdens, administrative burdens, which cities and governments and public sector investors and private sector investors all love to put in your way. So it's an endless form-filling nightmare, which the one-stop shops, I think, can remove. What does that mean in reality? That means that the one-stop shop needs to have access to public data systems which contain energy performance certificates of all of the buildings. So you can come in, state your address, not know anything about energy performance, and they have the data. They have your energy data because it's permissioned to them, because they're a specialist organization that's compliant with GDPR, that is not going to reveal your private information, but it has access to it. Then you can provide access to your financial information. You can provide access to the information that your local government holds upon you, such as your birth date and the state of your performance and your income and your eligibility for different plans. So having gone and just verbally had a meeting without having to bring a single document, without having to fill in a single form, you can, in a way that most people would understand, access and permission the one-stop shop to be able to provide an eligibility check for the public support systems that may be available to you, to be able to provide the identification of the teams that can offer you the project support and the lines of technical assistance that may be available to that, and also have connections with all the financial institutions and feed them the information so that they can offer you the terms of the loans or the financial instruments that you're looking for. So all of that administration can be done by a third party on your behalf, and we have the technical systems to be able to enable that. But at the moment, that's not the classic model which I'm seeing being developed. And I think the administration hub, which would take the effort out of this, would be great. The other thing that I would like to just quickly add, because I see time's running out, is I want citizens to embarrass the heck out of mayors that work in inefficient buildings. I just want you to go and ask what the building's footprint is of the offices, the town hall, the library, wherever you go, and I want that to become a thing. Right? So energy performance matters. Wasting energy is appalling by us, by the public sector, and at any level, and we have the technologies we need to solve it. So let's make this a thing. Let's not allow mayors to pin green stars if they're living in inefficient buildings or building social homes which are inefficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So with these last words, you are bringing us to the end of the session. But before closing and before watching the video announced by Jan, I would like to ask you all to conclude yourself by giving one advice to the audience. What is your main advice to the audience related to financing sustainability, using 1, 2, or maximum 3 words, or let's say 4? I would start maybe with Gregory.
Okay, I think I have one in 4 words. Join an ecosystem that is global. Join, and by global I mean European. Start with European, but join an ecosystem that even if, sorry, I'm adding a few sentences. Even if you are acting locally, even if you are smart cities, join an ecosystem that is global. Open your mind to something bigger and scalable.
Oh, it's more than 4. Jan, your turn.
Well, I would like to advise to set up extraordinary networks.
Thank you. Network, indeed. Talita.
Stick to your plan. That's 4 words, right? So despite all the changes, context, COVID crisis, if you have a good plan, stick to it.
Thank you. Peter.
Don't waste recovery funds.
Indeed, it's precious, and we are investing a lot commonly in Europe for that. So indeed, let's be effective and efficient. Thank you, speakers. It was a great plenary. I have to admit that I enjoyed it. I have learned a lot. So I hope that the audience, you also enjoyed it. We did a tour of a different perspective, and I hope that you have received plenty of advice, plenty of ideas. I am sure that you can contact the speakers. I'm sure that Peter and with his group are ready to help you to move on. If you are a startup, consider the startup prize. Gregory is there and has provided advice. I'm sure that we can continue to count on Elena or other technical assistants, and there are also other possibilities to use the EU money available to attract private investors and to blend private and public money. I would like to close the plenary now. We are on time. We have used all the time that we have. Thank you, Talita. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Gregory, for this great session. Thank you for the organizer. We have the team supporting the Smart City Marketplace. I would like to thank also our colleagues for having supporting us in preparing this session. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Je zou ons kunnen zien als betonnen monsters, energievreters, daglichtdieven, onroerende klimaatrampen. Maar je zou ook kunnen inzien dat gebouwen wel degelijk van mensen houden. Dat wij jullie bolster zijn, jullie harnas van cement, jullie schil, jullie veiligheidsagent. Dat wij niet de afbraak van de planeet nastreven, maar juist de beschermers zijn van kwetsbaar leven. Dat er zonder ons geen steden of buurten zouden zijn. Dat wij de inrichters zijn van elke markt, van elk plein. Je zou dus ook voor ons kunnen zorgen. Zoals bij het Elena-project, waar iedereen heeft samengewerkt aan het Leuven van morgen. Europa leverde de financiële steun, Leuven 2030 de lijm. 24 gebouweigenaars deden mee, sommigen groot, anderen klein. Problemen werden samen besproken, oplossingen gedeeld. Al na een maand had iedereen van iedereen iets bijgeleerd. Er kwamen wel opgevoede warmtepompen en lumineuze lichtsensoren. Leuven leerde energie besparen zoals nooit tevoren. Vochtproblemen werden geëlimineerd, zonlicht gerecupereerd. Onze daken werden geïsoleerd, onze gevels gerenoveerd. Miljoenen euro's werden goed aan ons besteed. De toekomst in het vizier. Mensenlief, het is het waard. Bijna 100 gebouwen glunderen nu van plezier. De Leuvenaars creëerden 1000 kilowatt piek aan hernieuwbare energie. Dat zie je zelden. En ze renoveerden 150.000 vierkante meter, oftewel 30 voetbalvelden. Wat zijn we verwend? Wat zijn we content? We zijn niet langer een vorm van ballast, maar een bron van trots. Kijk naar ons. Zie ons stralen. Zie ons opgelucht en energie-efficiënt ademhalen. Ook aan de slag met jouw gebouw? Denk nu aan morgen. Bezoek bouwenaan2030.be en help voor ons te zorgen. Het Elena-project Leuven is een initiatief van Leuven 2030 binnen de roadmap naar een klimaatneutraal Leuven, mede gefinancierd door de Europese Unie.
What an impressive video. Thank you also, Jan, for making that available to the audience. Welcome back after this impressive panel session that we just heard. It's amazing to hear all the new and great initiatives from the different cities and regions across Europe. We've seen quite some insights into different things. Also, I take the pleasure of also thanking Matthew Baldwin for his great keynote this morning. As we've done yesterday, we would like to also give the floor to some of the exhibitors. And Stefan, I think we have one exhibitor that's with you right now. Is that correct? Stefan, are you with us? I hope so. It would be nice for you to join us, because I know that Stefan has an interesting interview planned with one of the exhibitors. And we're just quickly waiting for him to join us here in the room. I know that he's there, so he will probably join us quickly in just a second. There he is. You can see him. Stefan is with us, but I think we have a bit of a sound issue, so I'm not sure if he can actually hear me. But while we're waiting for that, maybe just to give you a bit of a heads up, just after the break, so please do grab a cup of coffee, have us on in the sound in the background. You, of course, have the chance to yet choose another round of parallel sessions. We have parallel session number 5 under the title of National Smart Cities Strategies. So we go down from the European level more to the national level. And parallel session number 6, which has the title The Bad News About Circular City. It works. So we hear a lot about the factors that make it work and how it can help you, and also maybe give you some guidance on that. Just as a reminder, and also because we had yesterday a couple of people that were struggling to get into the parallel sessions, you do have 2 options to do that. On the one hand, you have the coming up next tile just to the right side of your live stream, where you see those 2 sessions that you can choose from, and you need to click on them. And then very, very, very important is that you scroll down all the way to the bottom, and then you see a green button that says Enter Talk. So Enter Talk is where you need to click on. I know it's a bit of a hassle to just scroll all the way to the bottom, but you need to do that in order to enter the talk. So that's your way. Of course, you can do the same thing while going through the program tile, which is just below myself now in the live stream. Again, you can find the 2 sessions. You choose one of them, you click on it, a pop-up window opens, and you need to scroll all the way to the bottom to get to a green button that's called Enter Talk. And I'm just explaining that in that much detail because there were yesterday some issues in connecting to some of the parallel sessions. Just a quick check. Is Stefan with me now? Stefan?
I think so, Katerina.
Yes, and, I can hear you.
Perfect. All the better. Really important. I think we had some technical issues, but I think they've been resolved now. And indeed, like you said, Katerina, yesterday we had an interview with Guillaume from the Fog Guru project. And today I have with me Leonard from the City of Amsterdam, the Chief Technology Office. Leonard, are you with me? Hi there. How are you, Leonard? I can hear you just fine. I can hear your lovely voice, so I think we can get started. Leonard, thank you so much for being with us. So you work on the Atelier project. Atelier, I'm sure there was a lot of discussions about the getting to that acronym. So what does that acronym Atelier stand for?
Oh, that's actually a very good question. And it's also quite difficult meaning, basically. But well, maybe if it picks some letters from a whole sentence, and basically that sentence is that we are building positive energy districts in both Bilbao and in Amsterdam. And 6 fellow cities are learning from us from the demonstrator sites in Bilbao and Amsterdam. But the exact acronym I don't even know.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to surprise you, but I think indeed it stands for Amsterdam and Bilbao Citizen-Driven Smart Cities. And thank you for already pointing out. So one of the main aims really is to build these positive energy districts. So looking at Amsterdam and Bilbao, but there's other cities involved, right? Could you give us an idea of which others are involved?
Yeah, so we have 6 other cities: Copenhagen, Riga, Bratislava, Budapest, Matosinhos, and now I'm forgetting one. And as you see, I'm more into the execution in Amsterdam. I'm not the overall project coordinator, but at least we have interesting cities that are, they want to learn, and they are also very active within their own cities around this concept of positive energy districts that we are creating.
So can you tell me a bit more then? In the last session, we heard Talita from the public transport company in Amsterdam, give an idea of some of their projects that they are working on. Now, for you within Atelier, could you just give us a glimpse of the kinds of activities that you've set up in Amsterdam, really to build those positive energy districts?
Yeah, so Atelier in Amsterdam is part of the north of Amsterdam. It's called Buiksloterham, the neighborhood. And basically, what we mean there by building a positive energy district is that we are building 2 positive energy buildings. That's approximately 30,000 square meters. We have a PV plant in that area. Smart mobility is included in the PET. Of course, connected with microgrids to each other to let the energy community that is partly there and partly still need to come into the new buildings, let them trade with each other and exchange electricity, and also let them use their PV, for example. So basically a whole local energy community tied with an energy grid and integrated different energy use sources and smart mobility systems.
Yeah. So there's a lot there. So you have this local energy community, but the positive energy buildings, smart mobility as well. So that indicates that you had a clear vision in terms of what it is that you wanted in that area. So one of the work package that you have is also this vision development. Could you give us a glimpse of how that process went? Is the vision finished? Is it still in flux? How did that go? And who did you also consult with there, Leonard, for Amsterdam?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Amsterdam has quite ambitious targets on the numerous areas within the whole sustainability area. Of course, the whole circularity with the donut economics, but also the Amsterdam climate neutral roadmap that we want to achieve in by 2050. And within that climate neutral roadmap that we already have as a policy, there are certain areas and also certain spaces for experimentations that are there. Of course, we know a lot of things we know how to do. Also, a lot of things we don't know so sure how to do it. So we need to basically innovate. We need to try different things with the citizens, with different collaborations between partnerships, with different financing tools. And this whole PET concept idea that is also driven by the EU fits nicely within that that ambition to try things and see if it works or not. And also for us, it's quite important that the things that we're learning in Atelier, that we also can scale that up and use that in other neighborhoods in the city of Amsterdam. Because also in other neighborhoods of Amsterdam, you see things happening with energy communities, with smart grids, with different uses, of course, of sources of energy. And the aim of Atelier is also to replicate the things that we are learning and that we are doing with this group of partners. So I think that's very key for us.
So it's really about learning, experimenting, but also very much scaling up. Perfect. Before I pass on to Katarina, Leonard, maybe a final question from my side is how can people get engaged into the Atelier project for Amsterdam, but the project as a whole? How can they get involved?
Yeah, well, of course, you can check our website. I think it's atelier.eu. A really nice thing of the Atelier project is that both in Bilbao and in Amsterdam, we organize so-called innovation ateliers. So within these ateliers, we have a broad conversation with the public, but also with our partners on specific problems that arise within the demonstrator site. So in Amsterdam and Bilbao, those are really sessions to get together with relevant stakeholders to solve issues, to address issues, and also the view of the broader public is very much appreciated in that. We had our kickoff last year in December in Amsterdam. It was a well-viewed digital event, and we are very much open towards discussions. So go to our website. There you see a lot of contacts. We are on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and of course by email you can reach us. And we are always open to discussions with the public and with other parties as well that maybe can learn from us or we can learn from them. So we are quite open for that.
Thank you so much, and I think it's a great way to go full circle, because initially we talked about how Atelier is about citizen-driven, how to drive citizens. So those innovation ateliers are really one of the key tools that you are using. Thank you so much, Leonard, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, and good luck.
Perfect. Katarina, I think we're at the end of our coffee break. We're going into the parallel sessions. Could you just give us an idea what those are about, Katarina? I think we have a technical difficulty here. So we're getting started with the two parallel sessions. One about national strategies, the parallel session 5, and the other one is parallel session 6, the bad news about circular city. It works. So again, very much as for the other parallel sessions, choose the one you want to go for. You click on it via the agenda, you scroll down, and there you will see Enter Talk, and that's the way that you can enter your parallel session. Hope you had your coffee break, your refreshments, and enjoyed the parallel sessions.